Hello and welcome to Summer Money. We'll be with you this week while the Parrot Report takes a break. On the show, we meet some of Australia's entrepreneurs, field experts and learn a few money lessons along the way. Before we get into it though, let's just check quickly how markets did finish the session today, and you can see the ASX 200 did close in positive territory, actually reaching a fresh 21-month high today, up 22 points or 0.5% at 4,810. Markets really led by the banking and telco sectors as investors continue to chase those higher yielding investments. And let's take a look at the major sectors now and see how they did fare. And you can see that the mining space pretty much in the red today. Not such a good day. Whitehaven down 2.2% there. Looking at the energy space, a bit better for energy players today. You can see Woodside up 0.7%. Beach Energy, though, the one that's down over 1%. Looking at the big banks, and you can see there the best performer out of those was Westpac, up 1.3% today. Looking at diversified financials there, best performer out of those was Insurance Australia Group, up just over 1%. QBE down in negative territory, down around 0.8%. Looking at the property plays, all in positive territory there except for Stockland, down 1.1%. And looking at consumer-related plays, all in the green there. You can see best performer out of those was Telstra, up 1.1% today. Looking at currencies, and you can see that the Aussie dollar is tracking at 105.2 against the greenback. It did fall today on news that North Korea plans more rocket launches. That's hurting sentiment, as is the IMF global growth downgrades. That China data just failing to boost the Aussie. And gold futures, you can see there in negative territory, down 7.7 at 16.78. Well, the biotech space is one sector that is still in demand, even when the economy is dragging. Biotron is a company in the space that had a pretty strong 2012 thanks to a new drug it's developing for the viruses HIV and HVC. For more on how the drug's progressing and future prospects for the company, I'm joined now by Chief Executive Dr. Michelle Miller in the studio here. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Just want to start, just for our viewers who don't know what Biotron does, can you just take us through an overview of the company and how long you've been listed for?
Okay. So Biotron is an antiviral company. We're developing new drugs to treat really important viruses with an unmet need such as HIV and hepatitis C. Biotron spun out from the Australian National University about 12 years ago, and we have been listed on the stock exchange since January 2001.
Great. Can you talk us through your lead drug, BIT225, which is in development for treatment of both HIV and HCV? What makes it different to other HIV drugs on the market?
Okay. BIT225 was a drug that we've developed in-house. We designed a drug against a particular target and have taken that through a number of clinical trials. How it differs from what's already in existence, in particular for HIV, is that existing drugs for HIV work on keeping the T-cell counts high and the virus loads low. However, what we know is that if you take patients off the antiretroviral drugs, the virus rebounds. Yep. So in other words, the existing drugs don't clean out these underlying reservoirs. And our drug specifically has been developed to clean out these underlying reservoirs. So really, this is now, I guess, the holy grail of HIV treatment is, getting rid of the underlying virus.
Right, because that virus has been able to hide from other drugs,
That's right, it has. And it used to be thought, well, if there's a little bit of virus there and it's not doing anything, doesn't matter. But now they know that actually having that virus there does have quite a bad effect and bad outcome for the patients. The virus rebounds from there. It has an effect on the immune ageing of a patient. So now, I guess that we've taken care of the major part of the fire. So it's now getting rid of these coals, these embers that are still always there.
Now, I know you've just recently completed the clinical stage of a landmark human proof of concept human trial. What does that mean in terms of where you are in the timeline from beginning to end?
I guess, as you know, this has taken quite a long time for us, as all drug development does. But we are now, I guess, in the really sweet spot. We're in phase 2 clinical trials. Our major aim is not to take this through onto the market. Our aim is to find a partner, a multinational partner, to take it through the really expensive late stages of trials.
Right.
So where we are is really, I guess, the sweet people in pharmaceutical companies internationally want drugs that are in phase 2 with good clinical data. So it's not an experiment, it's not experimental, it's not straight out of a university with research at universities saying we've cured mice. We've actually got really solid data in human population showing that our drug, in case of hepatitis C, that 100% of the patients that took our drug in the trial were clear of virus at the 1 year time point.
Right, so you've already got those results.
So we have those results. That's for the hepatitis C trial that we completed last year. So that's now at the moment we are running an HIV trial.
Right.
That finished in December, and we're expecting to report results from that this quarter.
Right, that's what I thought. First quarter 13.
That's right. And in addition, we are, because the drug works against HIV and hepatitis C, we're also working on patients who are co-infected with both viruses.
Right.
And that's actually a really large population and quite a unique population that does very badly and very poorly with current drugs. And we started a trial in that particular patient population towards the end of last year, and expect that to complete in this first half year.
All right, can you talk me through sort of the decision on the target virus? Because is it a conscious decision to choose a target virus, or is it more of a trial and error process?
Yeah.
How does it work? How do you decide to develop this drug?
Okay. For us, our main interest initially was HIV.
Right.
That's where the program started. We wanted to design a drug against a particular part of the HIV life cycle. And as part of that process, we came up with our lead 225. We then were interested in hepatitis C due to some similarities with the target we're going after. The protein has some similarities with both. So we'd made a library of around 300 compounds. We screened them against both viruses and then came up with, in fact, this drug, fantastic for us, worked very well against hepatitis C as well.
Right.
So we didn't have to go back to the drawing board. But it really is trial and error. You screen, we know what we designed it against, and it does work against that. But then you start thinking, what else might our drugs work against? So you screen against other viruses as well.
All right, so what's the size of the potential market if the drug does become a success?
Hepatitis C is a really solid market. At the moment, it's 3 to 4 billion per annum.
Right.
And that's with drugs which really do not have very good efficacy. They have quite severe side effects in many patients. And it's expected, as people come up with new, safer drugs, which can be used in a wider group cohort of patients, the market will expand to over 10 billion per annum. I mean, there's 170 million people infected with hepatitis C worldwide, which is a really large number. And in the USA alone, over 3.2 million people are chronically infected.
Yeah, so it generates a pretty strong commercial interest.
This is, and the major pharmaceutical companies are falling over themselves. There was a couple of really very large deals that were done earlier last year where Gilead, a US-listed, I guess, what really is a pharma company now in terms of size, bought Pharmaset for $11 billion for really what was a phase 2 asset.
Right.
And Bristol Myers bought another company, Inhibitex, not long afterwards for $2 billion.
So being a kind of smaller player like yourself, you're a very attractive acquisition target. Is this the main game, the end goal?
The main game for us is to actually license it, to actually not necessarily sell the whole farm, because it's difficult from Australia to do that with your market cap the way that it is. The way is to license the technology, get upfront payments in the order of 10 to 20 million in general historical terms. Then milestone payments as it goes through the next stage of development, paid for by pharma companies, and as they take it through phase 3 and onto marketing, milestone payments are often in the order of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
So that's not, you have to wait till the drug's actually on the market and approved. Once it is, then there's royalty on sales. So it's actually a very lucrative way for small biotech companies to be able to play within this space.
And to be able to fund it, I guess.
That's
now,
right.
when you develop a drug like BIT225, is there a pipeline of drugs? I mean, you did allude to this earlier. Is there a pipeline of drugs that's kind of spins off from this that you can also market? Yeah,
we've been very focused due to financial constraints on developing 225. However, we do have next generation drugs that are in development at the moment that are in earlier stage. So, and in addition to coming up with the next generation inhibitors, we also have a very interesting program for dengue virus.
Right.
So we have and a number of other much earlier stage programs as well. So as resources become available, it's not that we're a one drug wonder, we have the expertise and the technology to come up with more drugs.
And when you forecast financial figures, I guess, do you take into account these pipeline drugs, or are they just so minuscule compared to the big bit?
At the moment, they're really not considered. I mean, we know the value's there,
right?
But it's difficult for somebody externally to value those. So that's really just potential upside that's sitting there that we hope to be able to realise over the next period of time.
All right. Now, what about product exclusivity? Because I know this is a big thing in the drug market. You know, they go through this period of exclusivity after they're developed. Can you take us through that?
Yeah, the main thing that controls that is patents.
Right.
So we're very fortunate that because we developed the drug in-house, it wasn't a drug that was already out there. We filed our patents at at the appropriate time, but they still have a very long way to run.
Yeah.
So once, I think it's 20 years period of exclusivity, so we're still well within that space. By the time if the drug gets approved, there will still be, well over a decade or more of exclusivity period for our drug before anybody else could replace it.
Okay, now I know you said post the development process you get the pharma company involved and that helps with funds, but I mean it's an expensive model to start with because you've got to get the funding before the drug's even been developed in research testing phase. I know in 2011 you guys were spending a lot of money, $175,000 a month or something like that, to actually get this research and testing. So how do you actually go about getting funding before you start developing the drug?
Yeah, that's actually very difficult because it's really on the promise. I guess biotech is by nature speculative because you don't actually have a product. It's a standard thing of fear and greed, and people can see the potential upside if things work out. We've been very fortunate that we've been very well supported by our shareholders, as we've been very careful with what we've spent. We run a relatively virtual model with not a large number of staff, but outsourcing and using external groups as and when we need it. But it really has relied on shareholders supporting us as we go along.
So what's your outlook for the next 12 months? Give us a wrap of what you're expecting.
Next 12 months we're expecting to be a pretty exciting time actually. We've already shown in the trial finished last year fantastic data from the phase 2 hepatitis C study. We have the HIV trial that's finished that we expect data this quarter, and that'll be the first time anybody's really looked at trying to attack HIV within these reservoirs, so that's pretty exciting, and I guess within the international space people are very interested in that. We have the co-infected study coming off this half year. Because that's such a niche, when I say niche that sounds like it's quite small, but I guess we have a really unique position in quite a large market, that will be very exciting for us. And second half of the year to start a larger 3-month hepatitis C study.
All right, Michelle Miller, Dr. Michelle Miller from Biotron, very good things you're doing. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
We're moving now to the tech sector.